On PM Express tonight, the fundamental question I want to ask is what really happened on Friday? How on earth did the NDC MPs, as we've now been led to believe by party stalwarts, how did they betray their party? They've been called treacherous, traitors, and betraying their own political party. Disloyal. Just a host of adjectives have been used to describe some NDC members of parliament who voted to approve President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees. And so today, we'll try and understand what really happened from some of those who were actually there and also voted in the House. And as you may have noticed, these are the numbers. This is what it came down to. It came down to numbers. As of Friday evening, we knew that the NPP side had 136 in the House, and the NDC side also had 136 in the House, because there were 3 absentees, one of which is on the side of the NPP, 2 of them on the side of the NPP, and 1 on the side of the NDC. The one on the side of the NDC, James Achikwe, by virtue of legal issues, could not be in the House. But there was Sarah Adjosafo, that's another conversation for another day, who wasn't in the House. And then there was one other deputy minister, I believe, who wasn't well. And so we knew as of Friday that it was going to come down to 136, 136. And if you go according to Constitution and people voted strictly according to party lines, then that vote would have been defeated when there's a tie. So that is the case as we went into the vote. And so there were 272 MPs, right? And however, why is this an issue? This has only become an issue because of the build-up towards the vote. You remember on the same show, we had an exclusive with the General Secretary who told us emphatically that he was confident that the NDC MPs will vote in their numbers, all 136 of them, to reject the president's nominees. He was and I made a point to him that be careful with what you say, because we've seen this before when Kojo Nkrumah, Hawa Kumsing, and Ken Ofori-Atta were held up, and yet they got a vote. There was a party grassroots revolt. It says, well, this time is different. We are going to monitor. We're going to place in monitoring mechanisms to ensure that they comply. And if they don't, there will be sanctions. And then we went to the vote, and this was the outcome. Significant numbers of NDC MPs voted with their MPP colleagues to approve the nominations of these 6 nominees in clear violation of party whipping them in line. There was a 3-line whip that had been issued, and 3-line whips come with consequences. And that's another conversation we need to have. If you violate the 3-line whip, it comes with consequences. In fact, it could come down to possibly even being expelled from the party. But the challenge with this is it's a secret ballot. You need to find those who were disloyal to the party. And if you look at the numbers, the least you will find is, and that we've heard already some of the NDC MPs themselves doing their own calculations, claiming that some 36 NDC MPs voted with the other side. And you see that play out here. So Katie Hammond had 154 people voting. And you look at the number here of people who said no. It's 116 short from 136. That's what it's supposed to be. And Brian Champon obviously swept the day in terms of the numbers. He had far more NDC MPs voting for him. The numbers reduced significantly from what he used to be when it came to Katie Hammond of 116, even for Obi Amwa of 120, or even in the case of Stephen Amwa of 123, all the way to 98 of them. 98. So if it came down to it, there were 98 NDC MPs who stood firm, possibly throughout, in the voting. But the others, close to 40 of them, decided to vote with the other side. That has led to, but the thing that surprised me, yes, rejected votes. MPs, and you know what the voting was? A simple case of just taking a pen and then ticking a box. 6 boxes, you tick the box. And somehow, 3 of them in the case of Brian Champon managed to spoil their ballot, right? That in itself is another conversation we need to have. So those are the numbers. And then you come to And for me, this is the big deal, right? They lost in the ministerial vote. And then a couple of hours down the line, they had an opportunity to redeem themselves in the case of the judges. To be fair though, in the judges' case, it hadn't been an explicit order. But the party's principle of Operation Safer Democracy applied here too, which is don't blow the government. You don't need more people to the Supreme Court. And so we've approved 2 already. These 2 we opposed. And the reason why this was an interesting matter, for the very first time, the Supreme Court nominees who have been vetted and report laid, they were held up. Their nominations, the confirmation was held up for months. But why Friday? And if you listen to what happened on the floor, the MPP side they were insisting that we will vote on these judges on Friday as well. When the NDC side, after having lost, were begging that we want to go and come back on Monday too, the MPP side said, no, we'll vote. What was it? What was it that convinced them that if they voted on Friday evening, they'll get all of them approved? And lo and behold, that's what happened. The numbers were closer though, but there were still, at least in this case, were 2 NDC MPs who voted for them. In this case, there were 3 NDC MPs who voted for them. So who are these individuals? There's a search tonight for them. And if you go to what we've seen, the reactions have been crazy across the board. And this is the directive. The directive was clear. Size of government must reduce in the face of economic crisis. If you don't reduce your size, we are not approving your nominees, is what the NDC said there. Now, this I find interesting. The General Secretary of the party, Fifi Kwete, on his WhatsApp page, has been putting out the names of NDC MPs, he says, were kept faith with the party, the loyal ones. So this is a roll call. He has been naming them. A roll call of loyal NDC MPs. So he was naming and praising. Not naming and shaming, but naming and praising those who stood with them. The question is, how did he know these MPs? Because this was a secret ballot. But tell you what, we've seen videos already circulating of some of the NDC MPs. They are recording of their secret ballot and sharing it with people. And that has leaked already. We've seen a few. So maybe that's how he got to know. Maybe when he told me here that they will put in place mechanisms, that is what he meant. And so they know. So what this means is, if your name has so far not been published by the General Secretary of the NDC, and we've put their pictures there for you to see, Wisdom Woyome, Tete Botui, and there's Henry Nogbe, Edward Bawa, you see Sulemana, Rickis Hagan, Gamado, Charles Agbever, and there are more of them. I want to, James Klucha Veji, Agboja, Andrew Kuwete, Zanato Rawlings, Ama Kofi Boa, Roxy Nelson, Dafiam Ekpo, who has been arguing on Twitter that he's part of the 90 plus MPs who stood with the party and with the country, and in terms of the population. He's also there named, according to the General Secretary. We didn't make this up. He put this up on his WhatsApp page to name them and praise them for keeping and being loyal to the party. Those are the names. Of course, you have Okudzeto Ablakwa, you have the man himself who is a minority leader, Mr. Atufosin, Dr. Atufosin, named as one of those loyal to the party. You have Murtala Mohammed, you have Bernard Ahiafo, Peter Yakwame Aka. These are the faces. Mano Bejra. These are the faces. These are the roll call, the loyal NDC MP roll call. That's what they are. Those who stood with the party, and the NDC will tell you with the majority of the population who wanted a reduction in the size of government in the midst of the economic crisis. And the pictures are here for you to see. More of the pictures there. Peter Tobu, Agnes Naumumu, Clement Apak, John Kwabena, Kofi Adams, Linda Ohere Abenewa, Betty Mensah, Elizabeth Ofosu-Ajari. Very interesting. It's fascinating indeed to see what is happening within the NDC. And then the names continue: Francis Xavier Sosu, Thomas Nyako Ampem, Bismarck Tete Nyako, Fuseni Ebie Fuseni, Konfodoyo Ganza, Ibrahim Ahmed Banda, Joycelyn Tete, Helen Adjoa Toso. I mean, these are the MPs the General Secretary says voted and stood with the party. They were not traitors. They didn't betray the party. They kept faith with it. And so they are being praised there. Now, the thing, though, and I want to go back a second just to make a point here. That the thing about the faces I've shown you, it is implied that if your name is not part of this list, then you are not loyal to the party. Yes, right? It is implied that if your name isn't part of the list I've just shown you, the names that the General Secretary had put up, if your name is not part of the loyal NDC MP roll call, so far, it is implied that you chose to betray the interests of the party. That's the implication here, right? And that is an interesting point, actually. And people are watching his WhatsApp page to see the names he's dropping. As he confirms, he puts them there. And we just collated them from his WhatsApp page. And he's updating them. So maybe he hasn't seen the evidence yet of other people, and so he hasn't put them up yet. But we are keeping an eye on this. This happened on Friday. Saturday, Sunday, Monday evening, close-up day passed. 3 days in, he's put this there. Is that it? We can count. And then let's see who is out. And then people will start pointing fingers. Why is your name not in this roll call? But here's the thing, though, I need to point out. This is not the first time it's happened to the NDC. In this hang parliament, with all the power they wield. Remember the case of Mevisawa Kumsin, Kojo Ponkruma, and Owusu Friakoto. When they were again held, their nominations were held. And people thought they were going to reject it. It came down to a vote. Massive defeat again for the NDC in the House. This time, there was a massive revolt at the grassroots against the old leadership in Parliament, to the point where Sami Jemfi took on the minority leader. It's never happened before. Publicly writing the statement, strongly worded statement, criticizing them, suggestions of all manner of foul play on their side. That was then. This is now. Same story, different leaders, same outcome. So here we are. Atufo Singh obviously had said a bit about this. He is profoundly disappointed, is what he said. But he wants them to look forward. He wants them to look ahead. John Mohammed himself has spoken also on this matter. He says, the people betrayed us. They're traitors, but we will not victimize them. We look ahead, going forward on this matter. We have, of course, the General Secretary himself also feels very betrayed by this matter. And then, of course, the MPP has been speaking. Why not? This is a victory for them in the House. When we return from the break, I'm going to be speaking to two people who were in the House. What really happened? I want the inside story. Please stay with me. Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed is the MP for Nanton constituency. Also joining me, Tamale Central constituency. Pardon me. I'm taking your former constituency. Yes, former constituency. Kofi Adams is definitely Boem and joins us in the studio. And then Dr. Seidu Alidu is head of the Political Science Department, University of Ghana, joins us via Zoom. But gentlemen, I mean, for mere mortals like ourselves, there's only one place to start. Murtala, let me ask you. What happened?
Asen.
On Friday evening, how did you lose this vote?
Well, let me say good evening to you, good evening to my brother and comrade, and good evening to my kid brother and a lecturer. Dr. Alidu is my lecturer at the Political Science Department. And good evening to your cherished viewers, and most importantly, the good people of Tamale Central. And permit me to say Ramadan Mubarak. We are in the holy month of Ramadan. Well, I think that this question has been asked to me, and I believe to Kofi and many of our colleagues, ever since we had the elections of the approval of the nominees of the president. The MDC took a principled position. Our position resonated with the majority of the people of this country, I believe including your good self, because I do know the multimedia position was also that we needed to do everything possible to cut the expenditure of government. That position resonated, if you like, with that of CDD, that of Imani, that of the IMF, and many other civil society organizations who felt that government needed to cut the size of government because of the over-bloated expenditure. So it was not just an exclusive NDC position. It was a position that many Ghanaians felt that it was the most appropriate position to take. So we had an opportunity as a caucus in Parliament. We do know and we knew that our numbers were not up to the numbers of the NPP, considering the state of affairs in Parliament today. But we were going into the elections with one objective, that we needed to have our 136 members counted. It doesn't matter what happened, whether the NPP was able to galvanize all their supporters to vote for the approval of the ministers. As long as we had our 136, that would have been comforting to us. Unfortunately, as a secret ballot, that didn't happen. I want to state that there was broader consultation. The caucus, the leadership had consultations with us. The party leadership engaged us, and reiterating the same point has been reiterated by all the civil society organizations and other, media groupings that are indicated earlier. Unfortunately, you cannot tell because it's an individual and his creator. You get into the, polling booth, you go and vote. One would expect that people would have done what was supposed to be done because we are the people's representatives.
In those consultations, was there general agreement that we should all vote?
Yes, there was. Like I said, there was...
Nobody objected?
No, there was broader consultation, and the consultation was not only limited within the ranks of our caucus. The leadership engaged us. The party leadership engaged us. If anybody had any reservation, that same person would have raised that.
And nobody
did that.
Okay.
And you could sense, I engaged your journalist engagement. Yes. I was very confident that we're going to have a 136.
Based on the outcome of those
the engagement. And most importantly, the MPP had two of their members not present. Joseph was not present. One of our colleagues, Philip Basua, I didn't want to mention the name, was also because he felt, I'm told that there was something health-wise.
Yes. Wasn't that day the majority leader announced
that he wasn't there. So we're going to have 136. And per the standing orders of Parliament, any voting that has a tie on a matter such as this, that voting will be deemed to fail. So at that time, the NPP was reduced to 136, and per 136 number, we were also 136. So our expectations were very high, that if we vote and we get a 136, the NPP, assuming that all the MPP members voted for the approval and all NDC members voted for disapproval, we would have had the nominees removed. But you see, the dynamics in this, if you ask me as to why people voted the way they voted, I may not be able to tell. One thing I can hazard a guess based on the experience in the past and some of the information that people have, there are several factors. And let me state, my PhD thesis is actually on committees of Parliament, and I have engaged members of Parliament. It will not be appropriate a system of this. Maybe within some few months, as I'm able to defend
you publish your
findings. And it will be interesting, what influences decisions of members of Parliament. Very, very, very interesting because of some of the members of Parliament I have engaged. And it's just unfortunate. The NDC did not fail, or we did not let down only the NDC members and our team and masses. We let down majority of the people of this country because people's expectation was that if even we got the 136 voting in rejection of the ministers, we would have sent a signal to this government that the people of this country, resent the attempt of government to do what they did. And let me just conclude on some of these issues. Look, we were never against the appointment of the ministers just for appointing sake, because we felt that the president had a golden opportunity to have downsized the size of government. For example, take the Ministry of Trade, a ministry I have had the privileged opportunity to serve as a deputy minister. The Ministry of Trade, over the years, has always had two deputies. Mind you, the ministry is divided into two, trade and industries. Under this government, you had three deputies. It created a lot of conflict. And because I have been a past minister there, I had a lot of information as to the conflict that was going on among the three deputy ministers, as to who handles trade, who handles industries. Now, when Mr. Alan Chirmanten resigned, one would expect that the president would have elevated one of the deputies. Instead, he moved one of the deputies and appointed another deputy and appointed a minister. Take Minister of Agric, for example. I have heard the argument that was the NDC expecting the Minister of Agric not to have a minister. Under the NDC, the Minister of Agric was was with the Minister of Fisheries. So it's unfathomable that you have Minister of Fisheries on one hand with several deputy ministers, you have Minister of Agriculture with several deputy ministers. Take Minister of Information, for example. Under the NDC, the first NDC under President Mohammed, were 2 deputy ministers at the Ministry of Information. And I remember on this program, a journalist who is now a politician and a member of parliament criticized why the Ministry of Information had 2 deputies.
So that's
ironically, when that person was sent, they had 3 deputy ministers. Yeah. So I'm saying that
why.
The reasons we raised for this government to downsize
was based on the national interest.
Very, very legitimate.
So hold I'll come back to the why a bit. But Kofi, for the avoidance of doubt, did you vote for or against? It's become a big deal. And in fact, I should have asked that you first. I'll come back to you. You have to clarify that because people are watching. For the avoidance of doubt, did you vote with the party position and the majority of Ghanaians on this, or you voted to?
There is no way I would avoid being with the party and Ghanaians. So okay. I did appropriately. So, but let me.
In true, your name is in the roll call.
Let me just start by greeting you and my comrade and standing on the protocols that have been created by him, but of course extend greetings to the good people of Buim constituency as well. I only would want to say that it's not the NDC that failed Ghanaians and the people. The NDC, appropriately as a political party, presented its policy position on sides of government and what have you. But I think on this occasion, we, the MPs, or some of us, the MPs, failed Ghanaians. Because I say so because the NDC, as a corporate body, still believes in downsizing government. But a particular vehicle they would have used to communicate that clearly failed the NDC and by extension Ghanaians. Because our presumptive leader even has moved further, not just to talk about downsizing, but he has even given a figure that when he becomes president in 2025, after we elect him in 2024, he is looking at not working with more than 60 ministers and deputies. So this commitment is still there. And like Comrade Murtala was saying, we have shown it before. John Dramani Mahama has done that before. So when he speaks, there is that trust that he will do it. When he became president, there was a Ministry of Information and Ministry of Communication separate. What did he do? He put it together with 1 minister and 2 deputies. Today, as we speak, we have communication minister and I think 2 or 3 deputies. We have information minister and 3 deputies. That's a full waste that government could be looking at. When you go to transport.
You know what I want to do? I want to come back and reserve some 15 minutes and talk about the reason. Because that is people need to appreciate that because that's a big deal on itself. But people want to understand. You started off by talking about, so some MPs didn't vote according to the party line.
Sure.
But I'm curious, why? You are friends. What reason would they have? Especially when I've just learned from what Murtala said, that you've met many times, there was engagement, nobody raised an objection. Did you even see this coming?
No,
Kofi?
I didn't see it coming.
You were so convinced that...
Not even the majority side saw it coming. That was why you observed
they were actually begging on the floor.
The deputy majority leader was begging. And he was trying to argue that it wasn't about an election and it was about approval. So we didn't have to actually go through a secret balloting and that we should just stand to be counted. Because even they were not sure of their side.
Maybe they didn't know that the outcome would be bad for you. So
I'm saying that. No. That was why the speaker has to suspend even sitting at a certain time. He came back. Then the process of voting also became another issue, and we have to suspend for a very long time. That long suspension created even a bigger room for manipulation.
Of some of your colleagues?
A lot went on during that period.
Such as?
Well, that's what I'm saying. A lot of influences occurred.
Within or outside Parliament?
Within and without Parliament.
From within the government or from the MPP side?
How? From all kinds of angles. from all kinds of angles. From all kinds of angles.
What were they offering? I mean,
Well,
I'm very curious.
I can't tell what they were offering because maybe no approaches were made towards some of us. But you hear colleagues speak, and the MP for Cape Coast South, for example, Rikis Hagen, has come out clearly to state a position on this. And I believe it's because he saw something and heard something. Others have also spoken to some movements that they saw during that period.
But Asiru Nketia was there, so I mean, how? Not only Asiru Nketia, the party force was deployed throughout. I think that was there from morning all the way to the evening. So how are people managing to maneuver and not be seen?
You see, when the suspension happened, the chamber even became empty for a very long time. There were just a few members who were still seated in the chamber. Many left to their offices. Some went wherever they want to go. So during that time, it will be difficult for even the leadership to track who was where and who was doing what. And so the presence of the national chairman at that moment wouldn't even matter anymore, because it's not like we were seated at one place, and even if we were seated at one place, when it got to voting time also, like Comrade Murtala said, you enter the voting booth alone. Nobody is watching you, except for those who, knowing what had happened in the past and didn't want to suffer another collective tagging, went in there and did what normally should not have been promoted with their phones and have to capture, because that was where it's gotten to capture it and to keep it in case. And they were right. They were so right.
Did you capture it yourself?
Yes, I did. Luckily, you see, by my name, Adams, we are among the very first booth, the A column. Yeah. So those who are a bit far away, they had time to even plan a better way of even doing it. We, the A people, I'm about the 17th person to be called on the list. So you can imagine, you are among the first persons to be called. And I went in there with my phone. This was a surprising thing. Once I was about voting, that was the time my caucus chairman was calling me also. So my phone was receiving a call.
You couldn't even activate your camera?
I couldn't activate my camera. I didn't know even what to do, but I have to cut that call immediately in order to be able to, because you needed to think very fast. And Chief, I'm happy I did.
You'd have been dead.
Yeah, I would have been part of,
because we've seen the names now. And you see, what is happening now is that by tomorrow, we will now know those whose names have not been published by the General Secretary.
I'm happy I did, despite that call coming through. And when I finished, and I later called him, he said, he didn't even know he was calling me. So it was an accidental call. I said, this one...
Your hometown people were conspiring to help you out.
But it's really unfortunate that it went the way it went. But because like Comrade Murtala said, not in any meeting did any one of us really show any indication. In the case of the judges, I would say for some 1 or 2 meetings I heard of, some 2 or 3 persons raised some concern.
And we saw it in the voting, 2 or 3 people. In fact, the maximum who voted for them.
Some raised some concerns in the case of the judges. But for the ministerial nominees,
it was unanimous.
It was unanimous. There was no indication whatsoever from anybody. But for the judges, in some meetings, so it took quite some time. At a point, even there was a position as to whether the appointments committee should go back and change the decision by a majority decision to consensus, so that they would just pass. All these discussions went on based on concerns that some members raised, but it was subsequently resolved. Even that one was resolved.
Among
the position, the position was that we were going against these persons.
Let me give Murtala an opportunity. Murtala, I have asked the question I think it's fair to ask you. Did you vote for or against?
Well, I'm not in the NDC by accident. I'm in the NDC because I have a profound belief that that is the political ideology my stance, my philosophy, and my principles, resonates with. I didn't only take a picture, I took a video. And I guess that if there is any video that is clearer as to how...
I saw yours, I must admit.
And the reason why I took a video was that I ensured that my voice was in the video. Because anybody can take anybody's video, assuming it was just a silent video. Someone can say that perhaps that was someone's video and then you took. And I remember before we went into the voting, I told Honorable Agboja, and I'm saying it on this program, I went to him and I said, look, Minority Chief Whip, I think that if you can instruct on our platform that everybody should take evidence of how he or she votes, because of the experience we had in the matter of the approval of Kojo Pong Nkrumah, Aokumsin and Co. Because there are some of the ministers who do not talk to some of us. Because I walk across the aisle to tell a particular person that person was not fit to be a minister. And I remember one of the ministers today came to me and I said, no, that person is not fit. You yourself, you are not fit. Unfortunately, we went into the elections and that person becomes a minister. Certainly, that person will consider me as his enemy. If you look at the voting that happened, I remember when Bauer went to vote, Honorable Edward Bauer, right, yes. He took a picture. When he came, he showed it to me and I said, Bauer, I won't take a picture. I'll take a video and I will ensure that my voice is captured in it. The moment I took the video, and you can ask Honorable Atufosen, Honorable Bua, Honorable Agboja, literally before I took my seat after voting, I sent it to them. Now, I didn't send it to them for the public consumption. It was later in the night that someone called me, a national executive officer, and we're all lamenting about what happened. And then the person was like, this is the rumor they heard about somebody. And I said, no, I am in the month of Ramadan. And besides, I can't give testimony to something I don't have any evidence. The rumors are said by enemies, spread by innocents, and believed by fools. I did not want to be a fool by believing any rumor. And that's why I have a problem with some of the rhetorics. If you have evidence that someone took money, be courageous enough to say that this particular MP took money. So when people sit down and say that we have evidence that ABCD, tell us who took the money. Because that is the only way. But when you say that you have evidence that some MPs took money, you are lumping all of us because you can never tell who the suspect is.
No, but you have a video.
No, but you see, there were other members who didn't take videos. How many of us took the videos and pictures?
There wasn't a direct instruction.
No, there wasn't.
So people just did it by themselves.
Yes, I'm saying that but I went to Honorable Agboja before the voting. Okay. And I said, I would want you to put it. And he said, look, sometimes you can't trust even some of us. But give that directive as the Minority Chief Whip. So that whoever refuses to do so, should this thing happen, we can have people we can genuinely consider as suspects. Okay. So I took the video. My point is that...
Except to add that the Deputy Minority Chief Whip, the two of them actually, at the point, but at the time they did, not all members were on their seats.
No, but so I thought they did that when it came to the matter of the voting of the judge.
No. Oh, they actually did it before even we started the whole.
But not many people were on
that. Not many people were.
So the point I'm making, look, the idea that even certain people had problems with how they were going to vote in the matter of the judges was wrong. The party took a position.
On that too?
Yes, it was wrong. The party took a position. We are rejecting all of them. The same expenditure reasons for which we felt that this government didn't need to appoint more ministers. It was the same way on the judges. So if we took a position, nobody should have fathomed the consideration of even saying that they have reasons. Everybody could have had a reason. But you see, we need to be very, very careful. How about those who genuinely voted against these ministers but didn't capture? Now, if you are going to be serialized in this way, on the basis of those of us who had videos and those of us who took pictures, and some people didn't take videos, they didn't take pictures because there wasn't a directive to do so, such a person will feel very unhappy. I think that we need sober heads to prevail under this circumstance. Look, the NDC has done a lot. And I have heard many people who say that, oh, the NDC has disappointed us. They have every justifiable reasons to be disappointed, to be angry with us. I went for a program on a sister station. When I came to take my car, someone was driving and saw me and rolled the glass. Honorable, you guys have disappointed us. And I said, look, it's just like a criminal who has stolen. Anybody can slap you, even kids can slap you. You can't say anything. You can't have a justification. You can't defend this. But the point I'm just making is that we delivered when it came on the issue of the speaker. We delivered in the matter of the budget by rejecting it. And we saw also how the constitution and standing orders were ripped apart by this government in ensuring that they have the budget approved. We delivered when it came to the issue of the e-levy. And we also saw how the MPP indeed disregarded the constitution and the standing orders and had the e-levy, passed. Unfortunately, we couldn't deliver in this matter. And there was another issue that we couldn't deliver. I'm not holding brief for us, but I'm saying that for me, if we are going to be tearing each other apart on the matter of those people who betrayed and those who didn't betray, you'll be shocked to realize that those who are now even the loudest perhaps didn't even vote on the party.
But we have a situation where your general secretary now is putting out names and it's become part of the...
No, I have a problem when I express same to him. Okay. I am not questioning why he did it, but I personally have a problem.
There must be consequences.
And I have a... No, I'm saying that... I'm
for those who betray the party.
I am not saying there shouldn't be consequences.
But how do you find them?
But I just asked a question.
His point is that...
How about those who voted but didn't
capture?
So now, they wouldn't be mentioned. Yeah. Their conscience will think that they betrayed the party, when, truly speaking, they never betrayed the party. Yeah. And that is why I said, look, sober heads need to prevail. We still have a lot of businesses to do. Yeah. I was devastated, and like Kofi stated, a lot of us were devastated. The reasons why we felt that we needed to have these ministers rejected were the reasons that resonated with people like you, the media, civil society organizations.
Even the diplomatic community.
Exactly. In fact, even the IMF, the very people from whom we are begging for money, part of their recommendations and the reasons why they think that this government has mismanaged the affairs of this country was that we have a huge government. So it was a national issue. I have heard people who are neither NDC members or MPP members, but they have so much hope in us. But it is important for us to state, in this Fourth Republic, I don't think we have ever had a minister rejected. And I'll give you an example. In the Fifth Parliament, and ironically and interestingly, our current National Secretary, in the Fifth Parliament, NDC had 113 members of Parliament. MPP had 108 members of Parliament. So it was just a difference of what? 5 members of Parliament. You remember Honorable Fifi's approval. The MPP issued a statement, in fact, a 3-line whip that they should not approve Honorable Fifi. But at the end of the day, he got 117 votes. It means that 4 members of the MPP disregarded the whip line, the directive of their party, and voted for him. So the impression is created as if this is the first time we have had that. I mean, disastrous as this, and as a member of the NDC, shameful as some of our colleagues indeed conducted themselves. It is important for us to understand that at this material moment, we need sober heads to prevail. We need to understand that, yes, we failed the people of this country. We failed the teeming mass of our people. But that is not the end of the world. Look, I agree that if there are several scientific ways by which we can determine those who betrayed the party, let's do that.
How?
Now, that's what I'm saying, that if there are,
just let it be.
I mean, if there isn't, I believe that those who did that, in the heart of their hearts, would feel so ashamed because they went into the polling booth alone, because of the backlash. And the backlash is not only coming...
But you suffered it in Howard Kumsin's case. Yeah. And they knew. All of you felt from that history that you are not going to allow yourself to be branded.
Yeah.
They knew that. And it's the second time.
You see, human beings, you can't tell. You see, I will go into the polling booth with my clear conscience. I will go in there. Someone goes in there for other reasons. I did indicate that I didn't want to say some of the reasons why people, particularly in this parliament, vote the way they vote because it's an academic work and I haven't finished with it. But it will be interesting that, inshallah, by the will of Allah, when I have my vibe...
Let me bring your lecture and I'll come to Kofi on. So what happens now? And the key questions that have come up about maybe it's time for change the rules so that voting now becomes open. So we all know your vote. Professor Ali Seydou, so you've heard the MPs. I wanted to first understand what happened. At least now we've had some clarity. Give me your reaction. Please unmute for me.
Thank you so much, Evans. I'm still a doctor, so please.
Oh, okay, not yet.
But he's the head of department.
Yes, he's the head of department. Okay, so yeah.
So I think the two honorable members understand this better practically than I do. But we all assume that when MPs they represent the party, the constituency, the state, and their actions must always reflect either all of these three or specifically to the party directive. But what we have also ignored in our analysis is the aspect of the informal institutions. And you look at the parochial interests of individuals or personal interests of individual MPs. You're looking at relationships individual MPs have had with other MPs across the divide, but you are also looking at group interests. So the group interests, the MPs operate in caucuses. So we have Volta caucus, Eastern caucus, Ashanti caucus, Northern caucus, Muslims, Christians, and all those things. So you have a member of parliament who is MPP, and he's been appointed as a minister, nominated as a minister, and he fellowships at the same church with you. He's in the same caucus with you. You are from the same region with him. And you know that he can dispense patronage to you when he become a minister. You are in opposition. You need a bad wood in your constituency to be fixed for you to win re-election. He has assured you he will do it for you. Can you look him in the eye and vote against him? So those personal relationships, but also, group interest. So personal relations, some of them are in-laws, some of them are very good friends. Even though they are from the same divide, they sit together, they eat together. When they are out of parliament, they are together. They do a lot of things together. And then the personal interest. You see the NDC has opened up nominations. People need money to file. People need to justify their inclusion to projects. People need a lot. And then somebody promises you, if you're able to do this, I'll give you that. So, Evans, our analysis have focused largely on the formal institutions, the constituency, the party interest, the national interest. And in the case of the NDC, the national interest actually sank with the state interest. And a lot of people were very, very hopeful that this will happen. But we cannot also ignore that informal dynamics that occur daily among MPs, and sometimes which are even stronger than even some of the party, states, and then constituency interests. But there's also a second dimension to it, which though we cannot prove, but it could also be a form of protest. We have what we call protest votes in elections. People may not be happy with a lot of things that's happened in the party or something that has happened in the party. When you engage them, they won't tell you, but they will have to prove to you that they are not happy by the way they vote. And in national elections, protest votes do occur. And when protest votes do occur, what you need to do is to find out why people are protesting or defying the party trail line whip, and then see how you can engage them. The MPs are so close that the majority side knows some of the people who are disillusioned and disaffected and have challenges or don't like what their leadership is doing or their party is doing. And the NDC also knows on the MPP side those people. So sometimes it's very difficult for them to just go straight to them, take advantage of their disappointments, offer them something that will help them become very happy, or to prove that they are not actually happy with their leadership. And they go, they know each other. They are so close, so friendly that they know those they can approach, and then those who are disgruntled, those who can rebel. And then they use some of these impersonal relationships to get them on board. So I think basically when this happened, I'll go with Honorable Murtala's caution that cool heads must prevail. There's still a lot that's supposed to happen up to the end of this parliament. And 137, 137 is more about the definition of politics, compromise and consensus building. You have to create that element of trust within your rank and file, and that will give you the impetus to engage the other. Identify the people with the challenges in your rank and file and know how to bring them on board. Other than that, the other side would identify them and work with them. So I still think the idea of roll calling or witch hunting on all those things will deepen mistrust and suspicion in the party. Like Honorable Murtala mentioned, people genuinely voted for the party position, but couldn't record it or take picture of it. So if their names doesn't appear in the General Secretary's list, what does that mean? And what would it mean for his action within the
but the
party?
danger of what the General Secretary has done, now, there's no turning back. If he stops, the assumption is that wherever he stops, if your name isn't in the list, then assumption is you possibly voted against the party's wishes. That is the danger of what has happened. Yeah, please, briefly. Yeah.
Look,
that's what
forgive me. Let me, because I want to hear him.
No, I just want so that it can
very briefly, if you may.
When I voted,
yeah,
and I took the video and I came, someone voted before me, and I told them I took a video, and the person said, "Oh, I should have also taken a picture or a video." Okay. So I can say that person never took a picture.
So who is that person?
That person's name is part
but
of...
But you can testify
Hold on. I'm saying that person's name is part of those who didn't betray the party. Yet the person didn't take a picture.
And so his name will appear.
So on what basis? So you have others who didn't take pictures, who didn't take videos, yet they have been vindicated. And I mean, they have been exonerated. How about those who didn't also take...
Let me hear him and I'll come to Kofi. Yes, Dr. Ali, you wrap it up for me on this.
So I'm thinking that if we continue on this tangent, it will look like we've already have some people in mind that we want to victimize, and this is a very good opportunity for us to do that. But the issue is that even the party can go to the extent, like you mentioned, to deselect candidates that disobey twin-line whip, not approve them or not let them contest. But will that help the NDC? Moving forward, what these people will do, if you take that tangent and deselect them, they contest as independent MPs. Where even is possible, the MPP will not put a candidate there and support them. Then they spill the vote of the NDC. And parliamentary elections first past the post. It's not 50+1. Even with one vote, they lose the seat. So cool heads have to prevail. Other than that, when the party push them to the wall, they can rebel and make sure they lose the seats at the constituency level.
But you raise a very important point. I want to bring in Kofi on that. Kofi, so, consequences and deterrence is the only way you can stop this from happening. You have more than a year before the election. Crucial votes will come. Budget is around the corner, right? So how do you, and this is the second time it's happened, how do you stop this from happening again?
Well, let me say that nobody is victimizing anybody. So I reject the positioning that is an attempt to victimize some persons that have already been labeled. Nobody is out there to victimize anybody. I also agree that in situations like this, cool heads will have to prevail. But the cool heads prevailing doesn't include some of the actions that is being taken now.
In other words, you can't let it gloss over what has happened.
You can't gloss over what has happened because you want cool heads to prevail, or because you don't want to offend them. They have actually offended Ghanaians by their action. They have offended the party by their action. So there's a need for some serious actions to be taken. My comrade and I will prefer working with maybe a 90 member that is trusted
90 loyal
than a 137 that you can never trust. It is better to have a 90 that you know that you have these 90 and at all times, this is what you have. Look, we needed the energy by having the 136 voting the way Ghanaians wanted to propel us. This was a free bonanza for our preparation towards the 2024, if we have done what Ghanaians were expecting of us. That is why today, Evans, you have persons who say the NDC have failed us. Even though it's not NDC that has failed as a corporate.
You're not making a distinction between.
You must make a distinction between the individual members who have failed the NDC. Indeed, individual members of parliament have failed the NDC. That has come out there to use itself.
Certain individuals.
Okay, certain individuals, yes. Yeah. Certain individuals have failed first the minority in parliament. And by extension, we have failed NDC and failed Ghanaians. So people should be able to have a distinction between the NDC as a political party, between the presumptive leader's position on size of government and what it is he has done and what it is he has promised to do, which he still stands by.
So what must happen now? How do you make this a difference?
Well, there will be a number of meetings. Some have already been advertised. And I believe that there's a team already working. Like Comrade Murtala said, there were a few positioning and a few messaging that went on. That if it was possible for you to give indication as to how you voted, please do so. And because of where the ballot box was, after the ticking, you still will have to go and drop the ballot box. Originally, the ballot box was placed at the dispatch table. So you would have to walk down and come and place the ballot. That would have offered a lot of opportunity to show. That was changed. But some were still smart enough to show their ballot to the deputy minority chief whip where he was standing. Okay. Some did.
Some showed, but didn't capture.
But didn't capture.
Okay.
Some showed and but they didn't capture.
Okay.
Some were lucky, like maybe they called you and the next person coming to vote was also NDC. Okay. We have some members
like
of
Murtala
parliament.
confesses. So somebody he met somebody says,
he met somebody.
I wish I had done so.
So when the person finished, he shows it to the one following. So there were some of them who actually didn't capture, but they managed to show what they did, their intention to the next person following them. And if you check, and maybe the trust level with the person is a bit. So there are ways to try to find. But what I do not want or I do not like is the public. And maybe we should have collected everything before putting it out. Some media outlets have gone ahead. They have publicized first 36. And then there are others who actually took pictures and videos who have not even been published yet. Yeah, okay. So all that, maybe we could have waited, finished everything.
If they are found, what would you recommend? What sanction would you recommend?
Well, this is a serious anti-party behavior. And our constitution prescribes how to deal with such, it could be suspension, you could be stopped from contesting any position in the party, you could actually be dismissed from the party. Or you can be rebuked. So yeah, there are sanctions in the party. And you know, all these situations we faced is because also we have an internal election very, very soon.
How is that relate to your people's decision not to vote?
The other day, a colleague who is being contested by a former colleague granted an interview on a radio station and put a blanket statement that they should watch any sitting MP who attempt to spend some money in the primaries. Means that the person has been compromised, so they should vote against the person. Meanwhile, in this very constituency, in the last primaries, this sitting MP had accused this current MP of spending more money than him. So if the person could spend more money than you in 2019 when he wasn't MP, then if he's spending money today, you cannot accuse the person that it's because he's been influenced, assuming that this person didn't even take it.
So this will be used.
So it's being used even against people who took pictures and videos. They are not sparing anybody. That is what makes the matter even more serious for even those who voted according to the party's position but didn't take a picture. We have a primaries on the 30th of May. And it's being used seriously against persons.
So let me ask you this. Anodon Press says tomorrow on the floor, he's going to ask that all of you who took pictures be dragged before the Privilege Committee because he says the Speaker made it explicitly clear that this is a secret ballot. What's your reaction to it?
Well, who says that it wasn't a secret ballot?
Well, he says it was a secret ballot.
But who said it's a secret ballot?
Yeah, but how come yours was?
Look, me for example, when I took the video, I never took the video for public consumption.
But it's out there.
Hold on, I took the video. If it is a secret ballot and I decide to take a video as to how I am voting, and I keep the video, it's still a secret ballot. I had a conversation with someone, and I shared the video with that person. So if you check, I never posted the video. So when my attention was drawn to the fact that they saw my video, I called the person and I said, why would you do this? So yes, he shared the video. So as far as I'm concerned, it was a secret ballot. But you see, Comrade made a point, and I want to reiterate on same. I had a call and someone said, look, Comrade, I trust in your integrity. I know that you've been very loyal to the party. I want you to tell me, what do you know about this particular member of parliament? How he voted.
Because he was suspecting the person.
Yes, no, how they voted. And I said, look, I can tell you without any doubt that when the person voted, in fact, specifically, not suspecting, they just wanted to know. We sit on the same lane. He knows they call our lane a particular name. I won't say it here. If you come, it's Nogbe first, MP for Ashama. I am second, MP for Bali. Yusuf is third. Yeah, you have Honorable Bawa in that lane. The film we are on that lane. So we decided, particularly the four of us, that I'm going to take a video. Then Nogbe voted, took a picture. Honorable Edward Bawa voted and showed me his picture. No, throughout. Honorable Yusuf, he took a video. Yeah. Well, I voted before Honorable Yusuf. Yeah. So when Bawa and Nogbe showed their pictures, I said, no, I'm taking and I said, the video, I'm going to ensure that my voice is in it. So when I did that, when Honorable Yusuf Bwale was going to vote, he did same. I'll tell you one interesting thing. And frankly speaking, that's why I think that we need to be very careful. There is two colleagues of ours, Honorable Suparu, I think the Sisala.
Yes,
I came into the chamber and I confronted, he showed me how he voted, no, throughout. And I said, oh, but why? He asked me, why are you? I said, no, I just wanted to see. There is another honorable member of parliament, Honorable Zuera.
Yeah.
I think Selga.
Yes, I think Selga.
She showed me how she voted. Yet, these people have been accused. That's why I'm saying that we need to be very, very careful. But what the person told me, Murtala, once you vouch for somebody, I trusted because I know who you are. So that is maybe one of the means
to find people.
But Comrade made one point. He said that, look, we could have done this in the quiet.
Private.
Because assuming that someone voted in accordance to the party directives, but couldn't take the picture or the
Sorry,
the
I need
video.
to wrap up. Let me ask you very quickly. There's a suggestion on the back of what has happened. Laws should be changed to make voting in parliament, like we saw in Britain, we see in Britain, etc., public, so that your track record in parliament, we will know everything you voted on, how you voted.
Well, you support public. Even if not public, we should put a system in place so that how each member votes on any issue can be recorded.
Even after
so that when
voting.
there's a need,
okay, so can verify.
Go to inquire into it.
Okay, you support that?
Yes, even after the voting, because per what happened, the Constitution and the standing order says that in the approval of ministerial nominees, it must be done through a secret ballot. Okay. If we have a means that, yes, at that material moment, it should be a secret ballot.
But it's recorded.
But for some time, it should be recorded. Anybody who wants to do anything like some of them did, they would have known that perhaps within the next 1 year or 6 months,
it could be unseen.
It could be unseen. And that could be, and I think, to be very honest, the NDC has done so much. We have made Ghanaians happy in parliament. We have also disappointed Ghanaians. I mean, let's face it. You can't have a justification. You can't defend this. One thing I will just reiterate. We should allow sober heads to prevail. In as much as the party can find a way, like Comrade suggested, find a way to ensure that you identify those who did what they did. If the party decides that you betrayed the party directives, the moment you are dismissed from the party, you forfeit your seat.
Okay, so I see. So you even go to, if you find them, dismiss them?
Of course. What else can one do?
Okay, I need to wrap up. Dr. Seidu, 30 seconds. Do you support the call for reform?
Yeah,
Dr. Seidu,
we can, moving forward, have an electronic voting system so that when MPs are going to vote, they will call their name and vote, which is stored remotely and not displayed at that particular material moment. And when the need arises for people to look at it, then it's produced. That'd be good. In other jurisdictions, we can tell the track record of MPs and congressmen how they vote and on what issues. So it becomes even a campaign message for them. If they go back to their constituency, this particular issue, I have been a champion of it. If you look at my track record, I voted in favor or against. So it could even be a track record in terms of campaigning. So moving forward, as part of our reforms, we should try to see whether we can have electronic voting system that stores how MPs vote. And when the need arises, it is actually proved.
Thank you very much.
That will help some of these things that's happening in Parliament moving forward.
And in the matter of the LGBT.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's another one. That's another one. Thank you, gentlemen, and I wish you all the best. Thankfully, your name has been published, so you don't have a problem. We'll see what happens in Parliament tomorrow. First day back from Friday. It's going to be interesting. Stay with us.